So hello everybody and welcome to the latest Nexus Education webinar. Shortly I'll be handing over to Cate, Toria and Lee who will begin the discussion around finding your Edu-Voice. But first I want to take a moment to thank all of our community for their support, especially over the last 10 weeks. As an events company, it's been an interesting time, but thanks to the support of our schools and our suppliers, 0 events have been cancelled. We've actually run 4 events during this period with over 70 schools having taken part and accessing their donations and subsidised CPD. We've still got another 4 events to go before the end of the summer term. So we want to say thank you for your support. Please do check out www.nexus-education.com/blogs to access hundreds of free blogs and resources. And if your schools, a group of schools want to access £1,000 in funding, please visit www.nexus-education.com/nextworking. So on to today's webinar. If you've got any questions, we're going live. We tried to go live on YouTube. It didn't quite work out, so actually on Facebook. So you head over onto our Facebook page and leave any messages you've got, any questions in the comments section, and then we'll put them to the panel at the end. Without any further ado, Cate Knight, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Damien. Hi guys, it's In Bed with Cate again. And today I am joined by Toria and Lee, who are representing the Tiny Voices Tuesday team today. So basically, if you haven't heard of Tiny Voices Tuesday, where have you been? It's a wonderful way to introduce you to the world of Edu Twitter, and I'm going to ask Toria a little bit more about that in a minute. The main thing that we're talking about here is the importance of people having a voice, the importance of people using that voice, and the importance of people being acknowledged for their voice. And so I'm going to ask Toria, what made you come up with the idea of Tiny Voices Tuesday? Where did that come from?
As an educator, I wanted to connect with others around, well, sort of not just my school, but other people, find out ideas from other people and what was going on. And I wasn't quite sure how to navigate Twitter. It's a massive thing. There are thousands of people out there, and I had no clue. I didn't really know people on it very well. So I discovered some of the follow back threads, follow people, but the difficulty I had was I wanted to connect. More than follow, I actually wanted to really connect, and I wanted to engage with people. And what I found was that I had such a tiny voice that it was really hard to be heard, really challenging. So I initially came up with the idea of Tiny Voice Tuesday, which was to do with questions. So someone would ask a question, and then that developed into Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites, which goes on all day Tuesday. So it's 2 completely different hashtags. Really confuses everyone. But
so basically, your Tiny Voice Tuesday is the tag team where people can post a question, and you, if they tag you into it, you can then defer that out to one of the tag team who will respond with an answer. And the Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites is like a community group where on the Tuesday, people can come together and connect and talk to people, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. So it's 2 very separate things. And then everyone sees the hashtag TVTTagTeam after people's names. Those are just the people that will answer the questions. And I know that both you and Lee are in the TVT tag team, which is fabulous, as are 198 others.
190, that's incredible.
So we've got 200 altogether, so 198 plus you 2.
Wow. I have to say, I was absolutely shocked earlier that I found out that you only actually joined Twitter in January. So this has been like literally a whirlwind for you.
Yeah, so weirdly, I've had a Twitter account since 2009. I have dabbled, attempted to figure it out. So when I say I joined it, last year I was there, but I was retweeting. I was brilliant at retweeted everything. Didn't speak. And then my New Year's resolution was I was going to figure out Twitter. So that's what happened. And yes, look at what happened in 2020 with me trying to figure out Twitter.
I think it's marvellous. I really do. I think that is a great teaching point there, which is taking something that you struggled with and helping other people with it. And I think, God, if we as teachers could do that more, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? So Lee, you're part of the TVT tag team, but you're a head teacher, and you've really gained from this situation as well, haven't you? From the TVT to the Tiny Voice Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. So I sort of set up an account. I think it was about 2015, and similar to Toria, I liked a few people's posts, retweeted, then sort of cautiously maybe dropped in the odd comment, and again wasn't really getting much many connections. I'm not talking about followers. I'm talking about those connections in terms of communications. Because again, I think people mistake the two quite often. And then I sort of left it for a while. Again, you get a bit disheartened, think, what's the point? Because again, I very much operate around relationships and sort of building those connections, those relationships. And then I cautiously came back about a year and a half ago, you know, when I was considering applying for headship, and dropped a few posts out. And then I sort of spotted around about January, I think, Toria, when you started the whole TVT, that, you know, we didn't know each other at all. And I think I actually asked the question, and I think it was something around my school library at the time. We were looking at renovating it, and I wanted some ideas. And again, I wasn't getting, apart from the people who I'd already got relationships with and professional sort of communications, I wasn't really getting much feedback. So that is how I first engaged with it. And certainly, you know, I think regardless of what level within a school or what your role is, I found it incredibly useful. And I think, you know, I've seen CEOs putting questions in there. I've seen myself put in there. I've seen my own teachers put them in there. I've even seen the odd parent put some in there. So I think it's quite a great community, really, to ask those questions, and not knowing that at some point on some level you will get a response. And that's only as Toria sort of evolved this idea that now you're guaranteed to get a response, because over to our connections to support you with that. So no, as a head teacher, I've definitely found it useful.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, I had a similar experience to you guys when I first started on Twitter. I mean, I was lucky I had an introduction by someone, but when I first started, I would kind of try and work out what was going on, and I would retweet and I would like things, and every so often I would comment, but it was like I wasn't there. It was almost like I was being ghosted by Twitter. You know, it was really upsetting, and quite, you know, you can't help but take it personally when like several million teachers ignore you simultaneously. And so I think, you know, for me, I came to Tiny Voice Tuesday late, actually, but I just think it's a lovely idea. I hate the idea that anyone who's trying to connect or who needs support is shouting into the ether. I think it's awful, you know. And so Toria, you've done a brilliant job there. Would you say that the people that you are helping are experienced or inexperienced teachers? Is it mainly NQTs or?
No, I mean, what's lovely is we've got the question on, which is Tiny Voice Tuesday. And as Lee said, you know, we have had questions from everyone and anyone. And it's fantastic, actually. And it isn't just the TVT tag team that answer. Everyone jumps on board. We had the most amazing thread this week about coaching. It started off, and everyone and anyone was actually giving tips about coaching and how it was working in their school, which was fabulous. But what I've noticed is that Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites, which is the community, now that has really grown. So it started off as a community of what I would have called quite tinier voices that and you know, newer people to Twitter, and actually it has grown exponentially, because we have, you know, what I would say, we've got bigger voices, we've got people with a lot of followers on there, we've got people with not very many followers, we've got all range of people in different roles from all around the world. And that's fabulous, because, you know, it was initially called Tiny Voices, the Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites. I can't really change the hashtag, but actually now it's more a community of educationalists who all support each other, regardless of where they are in their sort of tenure, which I just love.
I have to say, I mean, I don't know that I consider myself a tiny voice. I've got a big mouth, but what I found was, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I really was so grateful for having Tiny Voice Tuesday, because I had been so swamped with certain voices on my timeline, and it just got to the point where I just needed a small group of people, not even a small group, just a group of people who would allow me to just be me and have my voice. And I think everybody needs that, actually. I think it's something that, you know, as teachers, and we were saying this earlier, that as teachers, we've all got a journey and we've all had an experience, and that experience is valid. And sometimes, no matter what your experience or how many followers you have, you can be made to feel that you aren't qualified to contribute. And I think that's a real shame, because for me, you know, I'm happy to take advice from anyone. As a teacher, I want to grow. And I think, you know, it doesn't bother me whether they're a head teacher of 40 years or whether they're an NQT that's just come through training. If they've got something to offer and their story is unique to them, then I want to hear it.
All about connections. And can I just sorry, I'm butting in.
Yeah, go for it.
But actually, the advice that I'm now giving to anyone new to Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites is don't just follow, connect. Talk to people, ask questions, get to know people on the thread. So you are actually building a, you know, your personal learning network that's powerful and strong. I mean, I know now there are so many people that I could go to for advice, because I don't just follow them, I connect with them regularly, checking in with them, they're checking in with me, and that's what it's about. It's all about connections.
It's finding your people, isn't it? I think that's a really important thing. Somebody said that to me really early on, in teaching in general, was, you know, find your people. If you can find I don't want to use the word clan because it sounds cliquey, but if you can find the group of people that will support you as a PL, you know, as a personal learning network, then you've got something amazing as a resource for the whole of your career. Sorry, Lee, you were going to say?
Yeah, no, sorry. I was going to add to what Toria said, really. You know, when we're talking about the connections, you know, it's the same with me. It's about, as teachers, you know, it's about relationships. It's about building those relationships. And, you know, to get the most out of your pupils, you form the relationships. To get the most out of your team, you form genuine relationships, not just superficial ones. You know, they get to know you, and you have made those connections. And I think Tiny Voice Tuesday has been really good for me and for many others, whereby, you know, you make a connection, you start to realize who you know, truly connect with on there. You know, you respond to everyone, but there are certain people out there who, as Toria says, you will check in on. You might look, they're your go-tos outside of a Tuesday, or, you know, or any other day. Those are the ones that you look for, and then you make those connections and build those relationships, and they will serve you going forward. If you think of any moment in your life on the, you know, generally that has moved you, or that has had an impact, you can put it back to a relationship of some kind. And I think it's so important that, especially in this modern world whereby we are so connected, actually those relationships can become very superficial, when this is a great way into building them. I've got certain head teachers who only today I was connecting with, who I didn't know up until sort of 7 weeks ago. And, you know, it's really a great platform for that as well.
It is. You said something there that really intrigued me, and we were having a little bit of a chat about it earlier, which is the idea that you can be yourself, that you building relationships, you let people know you a little bit more. And I think sometimes Twitter can be impersonal. I think there are elements of it where I certainly was very frightened when I first started on Twitter that I was going to be judged on a personal level and a professional one. And I think some things like Tiny Voice Tuesday allow people an arena where they can be themselves. And what I really love about it is that, I was saying this earlier, it's such a positive space, that everything there is, you know, very much you're accepted. It doesn't matter who you are and how you approach it, you're accepted. And I love that, because I'm somebody who constantly, you know, I get berated for being slightly juvenile and a little bit silly at times. And actually on Twitter, that can sometimes feel like you're alone, you know, that you're not accepted for who you are. And I really like Tiny Voices Tuesday because of its authenticity. Actually, I think it's one of the nicest things about it is that people can be themselves. And actually you posted out a few weeks ago, Toria, about people's experiences with Tiny Voices Tuesday, and then you put a show reel of their responses.
That's amazing.
It was brilliant. But one of the comments on there was, you know, I feel safe, like I'm not going to be judged. And I just thought, what a wonderful, like if someone could say that about your classroom.
Absolutely.
It's such an advocation. So this is the question then. You are all about, both of you are all about advocating for the voice of the teacher. And Toria, you we'll come back to this in a minute. You did some Brew-Ed isolation, but in that you said that you found that the voice of the pupil was so important to you. And for me, it's a passion of mine, you know, enabling students and giving them a voice. So for you, do you bring Tiny Voice Tuesday mentality into your classroom?
Oh gosh, yes. Children having a voice is absolutely critical. It really is, because it empowers the child. So within my classroom, we change tour partners every 2 weeks, and they absolutely love it because they get to meet new people and work with new people, and they learn about each other, and they feel confident, because I think that's tricky. When you meet a new person, you can sort of go, oh, I'm not quite sure what to say. I was used to that person. But it's actually developing that confidence that when I meet a new person, I can say, hi, how are you? My name is. And what I was really proud of this year is we've worked so hard on finding our voices that my children did the most phenomenal class assembly, where each of them wrote a it was actually about a minute spiel for their own book character. They learned it off and they projected their voices right to the back of the hall. And every single child in my class, all 31 of them, stood up and did that on their own, because they each spoke on their own and their voices were all heard. And I couldn't be prouder, because I think it is vital that children and adults have a voice and are heard. And that was, again, you know, I have a bit of a thing about, you know, assemblies where children end up being sort of not heard because they're standing at the back. I was always very tall. I was always put to the back. I was always a donkey or something in a class assembly, always. And, you know, I want every child to feel heard, so they aren't that donkey at the back.
In talking about things being heard, very quickly, ladies and gents, it is the last clap for the NHS outside. So we're just going to acknowledge that and say thank you so much to all the frontline workers and the NHS who have done such a fabulous job. And also, ladies and gents, you know me, I'm all about action, not just words. If you are clapping to the NHS this evening, don't forget to write to your MP afterwards and tell them that you think that nurses deserve a pay rise and the NHS deserves funding. Okay, that's it. No more politics. I think you're absolutely right. I think, for me, I always loved the idea of, I mean, I'm secondary trained, but I used to do things like student council prep groups, because they'd have student council, but basically they'd just let these kids wander around by themselves, and they'd wander in and go, what do you care about? And the kids go, oh, I want vending machines in the corridor. And like nothing of importance came up. Until like one day I got a few people who'd been whinging about something in my classroom. One of the lads was like whinging about the fact that they weren't allowed to take the blazers off when they played football. One of the girls was whinging about the fact that they'd measured their skirts. And I was like, okay guys, you've got two choices. You can sit and whinge about this, or you can use your voice. And they were like, we don't have a voice. And I was like, you do, you have student council. And they were like, well, nothing ever happens in student council. And I was like, well, have you ever told them you want something to change? And I think my senior management hated me, because I then instigated an awful lot of, you know, articulate kids who basically went through student council, who were just like, we don't like the food in the dining hall. You know, actually, for the cost that for the amount we're paying for it, we'd really like it to be healthy, and we'd like, you know, and suddenly they started using their voice properly. And for me, that's, oh, I'm proud of that, because that's democracy. That's where we live. That's how it should be. So Lee, what about you? Having just said that and how it annoyed all the SLT in my school, and you're now a head teacher, how do you feel about empowering students' voices?
Do you know, I think it's key. I think, you know, not just the students, but also the staff as well. I think, you know, Toria's sort of spoken out, and we very similar in our school advocate making sure that the pupils have that voice, whether it's through in the classroom or through various committees or being part of different parts of school life. But also, for me, it's about the staff as well, and giving them a genuine voice that is listened to, not just paid lip service to. You know, it's there. If you've seen any of my tweets recently, they are about our school community. And any decisions, and again, we're not going to get political, but any decisions that have been made and are made in my school are, on the whole, made with the backing of our whole school community, staff, parents, SLT, governors, and that is key, I believe. I think having that community voice and that culture where that is the norm is right. And, that's that culture that's been built through Tiny Voice Tuesday. It sounds like what Tori's does in her school. It's certainly what I do with in my school, my staff. And I think it's, again, it's a passion. I think that's why I connected, and that seems to be the buzzword, but it's, it's why I connected so well with Toria, and this whole, the whole premise and the whole idea behind it was that those relationships and giving everybody a voice that is listened to, I think is key. We were saying earlier about in a classroom, if you were, to use the analogy of Twitter, you were constantly tweeting and no one was replying. If that was your classroom, if that was a pupil who was constantly asking questions, never get responded to, it wouldn't be acceptable. You wouldn't allow that in your school. Now, of course, there is no obligation for anyone to respond to whatever you put out on social media. But actually giving people a safe platform where they know they will get a response is...
So it is. I've mentioned this a couple of times on these webinars, and I keep coming back to it for some weird reason. But one thing that I find really difficult as a teacher is that quite often there are loads of questions and you just want to answer you want every kid to have the opportunity. But in an hour's lesson with 32 kids, it's, you wouldn't manage it. And so what I've done as a common practice now for about 5 years is I've had a what do you want to know board at the back of my room, and every kid has a whiteboard marker, and at any point in the lesson, at any point, they can get up and go and write their question or their comment or whatever it is on that board, and they can keep it anonymous or they can put their name on it, and at the beginning of the next lesson I'll address what they've written down, because I know not only are there one or two people who might sit there and go, well, I want to say it but I can't say it, the ones who are sort of sitting on Twitter liking things but not saying anything. I also know that there are the kids that have their hand up and don't get picked and like, you don't ever pick me, and there's the kids that shout out as well, and they're so desperate to say something, and I sometimes think, we don't have enough time to follow those tangents, which is a real shame. So I often have that board at the back that means that they're acknowledged. I'm acknowledging them. I'm saying, your question is valid and your response is valid, which I think is really important.
Yeah, for some pupils, some staff, and and some teachers as well. The hardest thing is having that courage to try and find your voice. And if you haven't got somewhere where you can do that and feel acknowledged and feel you're gonna, I've heard the word safe used about Tiny Voice Tuesday. And this principle applies across schools, across classrooms. If you finally find that bravery and courage to use that voice and to ask a question and it gets ignored, well, then you very quickly lose that confidence and think, what's the point? You see that in class. So it's about empowering other people to have that voice.
It is. And I have to say, I mean, in fairness to the millions of people who use Twitter, the algorithms on Twitter aren't great, which means that you can be shouting out into the dark for a really long time without people noticing you. I mean, I've got people who are, people I follow, people I communicate with frequently who don't appear on my timeline. And so I don't know that something's happened until someone else appears, 20 comments later. So having not only just the hashtag, which is useful so they can tag in, but having someone like you, Toria, that they can tag into a post.
And what I say is if I haven't retweeted it sort of shortly after, then direct message me, because I do get, like, if it's on a Tuesday, I get thousands of notifications and I lose my way. And I'm also trying to respond to everyone on Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites. So it just all goes a bit mad. But it isn't just, so Tiny Voice Tuesday, the question part, you can ask questions 7 days a week with that hashtag. And I tag in the tag team 7 days a week with that hashtag, I do. And I think it's really important that people feel that they can ask questions and use their voice anytime they wish, you know, and to say, if tag me, and if I haven't answered, DM me, and I'll do it. But also going back to being heard and actually feeling valued. That's why I think, go back to hashtag Tiny Voice Tuesday Unite, that it's so important that people talk to each other and respond to each other, because I hate those threads where it's just lots and lots of different people with no response to anyone's comment. And it really upsets me when someone says, hi, you know, I teach year 4 and I'm from so and so, I hope you all have a good day, and no one's responded to them.
I know, I'm always the one who goes, hello, lovely. I know. I feel the same. I feel absolutely the same. And actually, before I discovered you, Toria, because I discovered you before I discovered Tiny Voices Tuesday, but before I discovered that, it was something I was sort of maverickly doing on my own, just randomly finding people on timelines and going, it's okay, I'm listening. But when you're just one person, that's like almost impossible. But having a tag team is such a lovely idea. Not only that, but it opens up the pool of resources massively, because you tagged me in something the other day and I thought to myself, God, I don't know the answer to that, but I know someone who does. And so I passed it on.
The primary English thing, because it was a really weird primary English question.
Yeah.
And so I tagged in all the primary English, but I also tagged in all the secondary English. I think I managed to tag about 35 people into this question, because I thought one of them will either know or be able to tag the right person into it.
Exactly that. And I mean, you do. And the wonderful thing is then you're connecting people who need each other. And that's just amazing. I mean, that's the power of social media. And I'll be honest, there are pros and cons to Twitter. I don't know if either of you have found this, but there are pros and cons. And one of the massive cons is that sometimes it becomes just a platform for yelling. But one of the biggest pros that I found is it genuinely, we talk about connection, but it genuinely connects people. It connects people who have like-minded ideas. It connects people who have solutions to other people's problems, or problems that other people can solve. And I just think we, as teachers, there's sometimes this very weird mentality with some teachers of possessiveness of their knowledge. They don't want to give it away. They don't want to share it. And I think it's really odd. For me, I think the best thing we can do as a profession is share it, you know, as far and wide as we can. And what Tiny Voices Tuesday is doing is genuinely building those really important connections. So, talking about really important connections, one of the things that's kept me going in this lockdown has been Brew-Ed isolation. And big heads up to Mr. Edward Finch and Darren Smith. And I've forgotten the name of the other guy who does it, which is awful. Pardon, Graham Andre. Yeah, they're hilarious, and I have to say it's amazing. I want them to be my best friends. But they had a very special guest the other day on Brew-Ed isolation. You went on to Brew-Ed and talked about Tiny Voice Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah, and it was, well, as Graham knows, I tried to pull out of it countless times, and Graham was very good because he just kept saying, we'll just, you know, hang on in there and see. And if it hadn't been for the likes of Lee and various other people that I have connected with through Tiny Voice Tuesday, I wouldn't have done it, because they gave me the confidence to go up there. Because I thought, you know, who am I amongst all these global educators? Because it was global Brew-Ed at isolation. I thought, I can't speak on that. You know, I'm Mrs. No One. And I was looking at all these people thinking, God, I really can't. And as people were getting announced, I was thinking, oh my gosh, no, I can't do it. And one of the people on Tiny Voice said to me, you know, you're doing this for the tiny voices, Toria. That's what you're doing. You're having your tiny voice heard in a world of massive educators, saying that everyone's voice is important. You know, even if they're not widely known, every single person's voice is important. I have never been more anxious in my life. I actually thought I was going to be sick everywhere, but I did it. And I think it's helped. And it's what's lovely, really, truly lovely, is since the video was released Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it pinned on my Twitter thing, and I get these random tweets from people saying, "I found my voice today. I've used my voice, Toria," and I just, yes, get in there.
Isn't that lovely? Oh, I love it.
So I'm loving it, you know, this whole I'm finding my voice, and you know, it's absolutely vital, because every single person on Twitter, regardless of their role or their length of time, has something to offer.
Absolutely. It's interesting because we were saying earlier, my first experience of the BrewEd thing was that Teacher Glitter, Kerry, hello if you're there. Teacher Glitter had contacted, well, she'd just put a post out basically going, I'm freaking out, because she'd been organising BrewEd Leicester and she was having a meltdown. And I sort of contacted her and said, you've got this, sweetheart, you're great, this is amazing, you're going to be fab. And I kind of then chatted to her all the way through the kind of organisation process. And the day before BrewEd Leicester, she sent me a message going, 2 of my speakers have dropped out, do you want to speak? And I was like, what about? I haven't been in the UK for the last 10 years. What do you want me to talk about? And she was like, talk about that. And I just thought, why? Who wants to know that? Like, all of these amazingly experienced UK educators don't want to hear me witter on about stuff that's not relevant to them. And I mean, they may have just been polite. They probably were just being polite. But it was, for me, it was a really lovely experience being able to share my journey and my reasons for doing what I'd done and my hopes and fears for coming back to this country. And I have to say, the platforms that I found on Twitter and the people that I found via Twitter, including Nexus, who are amazing, people have been very, very supportive of the fact that it's an individual story and we all have an individual story. And I know Lee was saying earlier that his story is really interesting, like that he didn't start out in management at all. Am I right, Lee?
I didn't start out in teaching, in all fairness. So it's, you know, mine was a complete career change from forensic psychology, working in prisons, to then being a teaching assistant and then working my way up to headship. So yeah, so that's been a complete change. And there are so many interesting stories out there. And again, you make these connections and those stories suddenly start to come out. And you know, some people don't choose to engage, and that's absolutely fine. But actually, it's one of those things where if you do want to, brilliant. If you don't, there's no obligation. But there are so many wonderful stories out there to share. And I think as you build those relations, you start to unpick them, and that gives you connections. You suddenly realise, you know, I've done it this week. Someone, I think it was Ed Finch put something out about oatcakes in Stoke, and I responded, I'm from Stoke, and it's another connection that you've got with someone.
It's really lovely. So you were saying on your BrewEd isolation, you were saying about Sarah. Oh no, so I'm going to get her wrong. Sarah Mullins.
Sarah Mullin, yes, and that's lovely. So I've connected with Sarah, and actually, my little bit is going to be in her book that I wrote. So I was so proud of that, actually.
Brilliant.
But I've also connected with other people. So Emma, who wrote about find your inner toddler, basically. Love her. I think she's the most fabulous speaker. And I remember when I heard her,
I love her.
I was like, oh, she's amazing. And actually, I've connected with her on Twitter, but there are so many other people, you know, that I've connected with and I'm talking to. And it's a leveler, actually. It's a real, because you realise that everyone's the same. No one is more important than anyone else. Everyone is the same. And it's just, wow, fabulous. So yeah. So
exactly the same. I met Sarah because she wanted some comments for her book on, I think, I'm trying to remember now, but I think it was about training and what you wish you'd known, and, you know, your NQT year and what you'd wish you'd known. And for me, I think that's really interesting because, you know, we kind of go through training processes and we assume that we all get the same experience. We really don't. I mean, like, providers, ITT providers, are so different, not only just across the country, but across the world. And for me, reading the comments that were coming back in was hilarious. I was like, oh my God, yes. You know, like there were one or two moments where people were like, you know, the whole smile before Christmas thing's just a load of, you know, and I was like, yes, it is. Who tells people not to smile at children? That's just weird. And I found myself kind of really connecting with you know, a group of people that were important, but also just talking to other educators and going, oh, it's not just me. I'm not going out of my mind. You know, there are other people who are in the same boat as me, and we're on the same team, and ultimately we have the same goals. And we need to remember that sometimes, because I think we can get caught up in the negativity and the infighting.
Well, you see, I stay well out of that, I have to say. I don't, it just doesn't enter my, I don't know if I just live in fairyland, but I managed to not get into much in the way of negativity on Twitter. You know, I seem to find these really, like, you know, if you want humour, you just go on Graham Andre's, because he's using. Yesterday it was ice creams, loved it, spent most of the day talking ice cream. And I think that's the thing, I personally don't go on Twitter to bring me down. I go on there for positivity and connection, therefore I seek that. I don't know about you, Lee, you're sort of the same, aren't you?
Yeah, on the whole, yeah, I go on there. I don't tend to go on there for a rant, although I probably have done over the last few weeks more than I had previously. Do you know, I kind of go on there and share a bit of myself. So you see, you saw there was a running conversation between me and Kerry, again, teaching glitter, about me taking a photo of me in a vest, which I stand by. There was nothing wrong with that vest, but it was a bit of humour. It was a bit of I don't like the word banter, but it was a bit of banter between the two. And various people dived in. And again, through that, I've connected with people who I'd probably not even connected with through Tiny Voice Tuesday. So every opportunity there is to connect, I think, is a good one. You know, as humans, connections are so important. If you don't want to involve yourself and you just want to have a rant, fine. Twitter's brilliant for that as well. If you want to go on there and just share resources, amazing. Thank you on behalf of everyone else. If you want to go on there and just, promote something, some people will respond to it, some people won't. If you're just sharing your thoughts through blogs, and Toria has been phenomenal with me by giving me a voice beyond Tiny Voice Tuesday, by being, I kind of call it editor-in-chief now of my blogs, especially when they appear last minute on a Saturday before a Sunday release. But
yes, it's at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. Will you please put this out? I've just been inspired. Would you mind putting it out there?
Well, he obviously has faith in your editorial skills.
Yes, and a secret stash of gin, which I still need to send down. But
I promise.
It's
that's
brilliant.
Another thing that's come from Twitter, and I mean, I know, we were talking earlier about authenticity and the fact that, actually lockdowns allowed us to be a little bit more authentic. I think that, people are suddenly going, yeah, I'm having a gin, or, actually today I sat and ate 12 bags of hula hoops. People are being a little bit more honest. And I think actually authenticity is something I promote massively as well. And particularly in leadership, I think the idea that you are your authentic self builds relationships, builds trust. But I've met a group of people on Twitter who I just happen to say, I like gin. Does anyone want to have a gin with me on Friday? And I've ended up with this group of people who are absolutely amazing. Toria joined us one week, who are just beautiful. And we just hang out and drink gin together. It's like a weird teacher alcoholic club.
I'm slightly left out here. I can't believe you talk about connecting and you're not inviting me to a gin party.
You're very welcome. I'll send you a link.
Oh.
But I think it's all of those things. It's all about those connections, wherever or however they are. And as Lee said, everyone comes to Twitter for various different reasons. And I think it's about valuing whatever reason people come into Twitter and how they want to do it as such, and I think it's, there's so much there, and I don't want anyone to feel scared off from Twitter and feel that they can't be on it or can't join in. And I think that's my thing. I just want people to be able to join in and know how to.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think I'd like to say on behalf of so many people on Twitter, thank you for doing it. You have provided a space for people to feel safe, to be themselves, to connect with people, and to get answers to questions that otherwise they would have just been shouting into nowhere. So thank you, huge thank you. So just so everyone out there knows, we've got the Tiny Voices Tuesday tag team, which you use the Tiny Voice Tuesday hashtag and you tag in Toria. If you put in Toria, she'll spread that out to the tag team and they'll answer any questions that you have. But then there's also the Tiny Voices Tuesday Unites community, which on Tuesday you can join and be part of and connect with people and expand your PLM.
I tweet out, it's now turned into 5:15 because of America, but I basically put a tweet out at 5:15 in the morning. It then sits on my pinned post for the entire day. But can I just say, people reply to my original comment. Don't just sit outside the thread, because so many people sit outside the thread and I have to go and find them and bring them in.
Yeah, I was like that.
I do that often.
It was Mr. Hill who brought me in the first time. I got completely lost. He went, "Do you know where you are?" I was like, "No."
We do. We go looking for people that are just sort of, randomly wandering around going, hashtag Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites. And it's like, yeah, you can join us.
So you got to look for the tweet on Toria's pinned post on a Tuesday morning, and it will be there for you. By the time you wake up, hopefully it will be already there. And so, guys, if you we're going to give the Twitter handles at the end of this, so if you want to connect with any of us, I know I'm quite happy to say that my DMs are always open and you're welcome to tag me in and I will share it with whoever. Tiny Voice Tuesday is there 7 days a weag, so it's not just Tuesdays. Use that hashtag. Toria, I know, has open DMs. Lee, I don't know about you, but
I get tagged into everything and anything and I love it, so just fire away.
So you will get a response, ladies and gents. So if any of you are sat there thinking, "Oh, I don't think Twitter's for me," try it one more time and tag one of us in and have a look at Tiny Voice Tuesdays. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. I'm going to ask Damien to come back in and see if we've got any questions that have come up. Hi, Damien.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for that, Lee and Toria. Really, really inspiring and interesting. I think it's something that resonates with us, Rhiannon, Mike, Joe and myself at Nexus. Obviously, building a community, giving people a voice is why we started Nexus, and it makes us really proud. And people, like Kate, we had a conversation yesterday about different things, and just be able to help out and just be there to lend an ear to people. It's not always, there's a lot of platforms out there, and it's always for gain. And I think it's nice to have a platform and platforms out there that are there for the right reasons. So I really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much from us and everybody in our community. I do have a few questions and a few comments. I must say, Lee, the green vest is getting a bit of love in the comments. I'm gonna have to hunt this out because I've not seen this.
I haven't seen it.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, it's a bit of a shocker.
Is it going to be my new screensaver?
It's just something that it was comfy, took on in the morning, and then it just turned out that I had it on when I took a photo to show how hairy I'd suddenly become. And that's it. It seems to be, it's I think got more followers than me. I think it's ridiculous.
I'm going to take a photo to show how hairy I've become soon as well.
Well, Ben Brown put, I almost took a selfie in the vest to come out in support, but no one needs to see that. That's the danger of work from home at the moment, isn't it? That's the danger. I mean, I've got a shirt and a pair of shorts on. I think it's what happens, I think.
Yeah.
So let's. I've got one question. I've got a few questions. The first one, do you find more teachers have found their voices as a result of the current issues that we're facing? May I put that to Toria first?
I think more teachers have come onto Twitter because actually you do feel isolated if you're sitting at home with your laptop and you're just doing Google Classroom or whatever other digital platform you're using. You can feel incredibly alone and you're not quite sure. It's, as teachers, we are naturally social beings. So actually being on your own can be quite challenging. And that's why I think so many people have come onto Twitter and sort of gone, "Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?" So I would say that actually, lockdown has been weirdly a good thing for educational global connection.
Yeah, agree.
Definitely. How about you, Lee?
Yeah, I think circumstances that have brought a lot of people together. And again, I think people have obviously have a vested interest, and it's at the heart of everything that's happening to us as educators at the moment. So we have that shared passion about it, and understandably so. So I do think it has brought more people to the platform. I think it may have certainly been people can relate to the conversation. It's quite, you know, schools reopening or not or whatever. It's been able to bring people together to talk about that. Whereas sometimes there are conversations that take place where you go, yeah, I'm a little bit out of my lane with that one. You know, talking about what's happening at the moment, we can all relate in some way. So I think, yeah, definitely, it's circumstances and then the topic that brought us together.
Brilliant. I've got another one here. Toria, it's brilliant you have such a holistic group of teachers in terms of tenure. Do you find some demographics are more active than others?
Initially, primary was very, very active. Actually, early years, very active. And then primary, I found the secondary educators have, weirdly, they've now come in. I've got the secondary in, they're coming there, and I've now got Key Stage 5 as well. But it's been really interesting watching how it's sort of grown upwards. But what's lovely is that there was someone, the Key Stage 5 person on Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites on Tuesday, and she said what is so lovely is that she's never connected with so many different people across education. And she said it's fabulous because she's learning so much talking to people that are doing nursery and, you know, an early year setting. So, yeah.
Can I just say on that note, it's something that I've always worried about in our school system is the lack of, and I know people do transition days and they attempt to make it a kind of fluid system, but it jars. There's a distinct jarring between primary and secondary in our country, and I don't know why that is, but there is a bit of one. And I think that part of it is because we don't have the time often to link with our counterparts in other schools, and Tiny Voice Tuesday is brilliant. It really is, because I've learned so much from people in different key stages for me and people in different environments for me. It's amazing.
And I think that's what's so important. I think as teachers, as educators, you know, what we need to do is be outward looking. We need to be outward looking, and we need to learn from people, not just for me, not just primary. I want to learn from secondary. I want to learn from, you know, further education. I want to learn from early years settings. I want to know the full picture so the children in my classroom get the very best deal.
Yeah. Absolutely. And isn't that the wonderful thing is that, you know, you said the other day that you tagged tons and tons of primary English teachers into something, but then you also tagged secondary English specialists. And for me, I think that's, why shouldn't we use this? We've all got different skill sets. We all have these marvelous skill sets, and it's easy to kind of go, well, this one's better than that one, but actually it's not like that. It's about equipping yourself with an armory, and more you can get, the better. So I love the idea that we're sharing across key stages and that we're sharing across phases. I think that's just magical.
And I'm so excited now that I've got Key Stage 5 and further education people on the tag team as well. That for me was just phenomenal. When someone said, hello, I'm sociology and psychology for Key Stage 5, I thought, yes, I've arrived. I can now ask questions about psychology and sociology. Could someone ask a question about psychology and sociology just so I can tag them, please?
Of course, I can work that out.
I'm sure Mike will be all over that. He loves that sort of stuff. Moving on, do you, I think this is to Toria and Lee. Do you ever find negative contributors with Tiny Voices? How do you avoid the trolls?
What do I do personally? I personally will message people directly. Because I think at one point Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites was considered to be a follow back group, and at that point it became quite negative because people were, you know, sort of banding it in, going, oh well, you know, it's just about followers and everything else. And actually I had some tricky conversations, but really, really useful conversations. But I don't do it on the public platform. I tend to do it as direct messages so I can have a private conversation. And as I would do in a school situation. In a school situation, if someone's having a, you know, is finding something challenging in the staff room, I'm not going to go right up to them in front of everyone. I'll have a quiet word. And that's sort of what I do on Twitter. And if I find that there's someone that's come onto the stream that's feeling negative or having a bad day, I'll try to, you know, positively lift the situation, or again, just message them and say, are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?
I think that's great, because that gets to the root cause of it, doesn't it? And that's sometimes trolls, for lack of a better word. And that's what people want. They want to be asked what is wrong. I think that's good. How about you, Lee? Have you encountered anything like that?
Again, I haven't really come across it because, again, they don't tend to get past Toria, I imagine. But we get, you know, but I think the way that Toria's approached it in terms of, you know, tackling it head on and having a professional dialogue. You know, Twitter is a professional dialogue, and you do get the odd troll, but at the same time, people will challenge you, and if they do, it's about being professional about it and having a conversation with them. Again, you don't want, it could be a genuine question, you know, it could be a genuine concern or whatever, and I think, again, there's that risk that if you challenge it openly, if you don't feel that you're safe enough to, that they're going to lose their voice, and sometimes it could just be a misconception more than anything.
Yeah, I think there's also, Damien was just pointing out there that, like, because Lee, I know your background's restorative justice. I think there's always a why. You know, like we try and find the why with kids. We need to do it with adults as well. There's a why. You know, why is that person angry right now? Why is that person negative right now? And if you can find the why, quite often you can curtail the impact. You know, you can sort of, because I've had it where people have responded really angrily to me, or been really have done something or said something on Twitter, and I've gone, whoa, that was quite a big reaction. And so I will message them and go, look, I really hope you don't think in any way that this was a personal thing, and I really hope that you're okay right now, and if you want to talk, I'm quite happy to have a chat. And I think quite often you do get people go, actually, yeah, I'd really like to, sorry, I'm just having the worst week. And they just need that opening from someone to go, what's wrong? Are you all right?
Yeah. I think with any social media, it's easy to hide. You know, you're hiding behind the screen, you're hiding behind sometimes a profile, you know, with anonymity, which is absolutely fine, but it's easier to type something than it is to say something to someone's face sometimes. And I think at the same time, as you rightly say, there's a why behind that, and you tend to know if someone's just trolling for the sake of a reaction. Yeah. We all get drawn into it. I did the other day, and, you know, it does happen. But I think, you know, giving them that opportunity in a safe space to have that conversation, 9 times out of 10 sorts it out. Absolutely.
Yeah. Particularly with teachers and educators, I think we tend to be, I can't believe I'm going to say this, we tend to be rational human beings. And so actually, you know, we reflect. A part of our professional practice is that we reflect. And so ultimately, whatever's said in the heat of the moment and whatever is said via the keyboard will sit in someone's brain for a little while. And I think that if someone can just reach out and go, hey, that seemed quite, you know, that seemed quite unusual, or that seems a little bit off in its tone, that they then have an outlet to be able to sort of talk it through. Because I think we're under so much pressure and stress as well that, you know, very rarely do we get an outlet. We get places where we can sort of share stress and you know, here's my stress in exchange for yours, but we don't often get somewhere we can just go and let it go.
Yeah, definitely. I think Rhiannon, my wife Rhiannon, was just coming to view there. She's got a quick question a minute. She was doing this to me then, because I'm the worst. If I get on Facebook, if it's political or if it's anything to do with anything, I'm on there and I can't wait to get into an argument. So I'm pretty bad sometimes. I have to hold my hands up to that. Rhiannon, you got a quick question?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, because I go on social media as Nexus Education, but I also go on social media as Rhiannon. So I was just wondering how teachers find it, like, you know, being a person, being professional, being a teacher. What do you say and what do you not say? Do you know what I mean?
Don't ask me. I say the wrong thing all the time.
No, I am continually conscious of the fact that I am a professional and that I am on Twitter as a professional. I would not do or say anything that actually would make someone question my professionalism, because that's why I'm there. That's why I've chosen Twitter. If I want to be unprofessional, well, I wouldn't do it on social media anyway.
No.
Really. You know, and actually, I do take I take my professional career really, really important. So I'm not going to do anything on Twitter that's not professional.
I think it depends on what you mean by professional, doesn't it? I mean, this is where we're back to the authenticity thing, in that I would never, for instance, I would never badmouth the school or badmouth professionals or be personal about anybody on Twitter. I just don't think it's appropriate. You know, in the same way that I don't think it's appropriate in a staff room, it's not appropriate. Would I talk about the fact that, you know, I had watched this TV program and it had made me cry and I'd eaten an entire tub of ice cream? Yes. I mean, that's not necessarily professional, but it's not harmful. I think that's the other thing, is it going to harm someone?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, like it's like hashtag be kind, isn't it? It's like, Cate, it's kindness. It's like, I'd never do anything or say anything to like upset person, or you don't know what they're going through or whatever. But yeah, I think like there's people I tag as Nexus that I've got questions, and then I think there's people I tag like Cate or Toria or whatever, who I tag to ask more personal questions. I mean, I've got a lot of questions as a mum as well, and I know all these teachers, so I go and ask them questions. It's quite a good like if you know what I mean. And it's like, yeah, I think a teacher's still a person, isn't it? You're never going to go on there just for like a bashing or whatever. It's just,
I think we're moving past the days where you had to be an automaton as a teacher. I think once upon a time there was this idea that at home you were you, and at school you were Mrs. So-and-so, and that was it. And you know, once the power suit went on with the shoulder pads, you couldn't be yourself. And I think we've evolved as teachers now, for the most part, to be somebody who allows their human self to the classroom. Lee, you were going to say something.
I lost my connection there. I do apologise. So it's just come up on my screen and said I'm unstable, so I'm hoping that's my connection. I was just going to say exactly that, in terms of, you know, I am no different on Twitter than I am as a head teacher. I have parents from my school who follow me, and you know, I would never put anything on there that I wasn't prepared to share. And actually, the things I put on Twitter, it's amazing how many parents might see me on the morning at the school gate and say something else. Say, "Oh, how was the gym at the weekend?" Or, "Oh, what flavour was that?" Or it's not all gym based, but it might have been, "What if I saw you were out with your daughter?" Or we've been there. And again, it's those relationships, those connections. So you put out there what you're prepared to share. But again, as Toria said, doing it, you know, professional, and that there is a line of what you would say. You know, I have friends who I have conversations with who I certainly wouldn't be having those conversations on social media. And we're all, you know, it's about making that judgment call.
I had a really interesting direct message actually from someone who I don't know quite what I could have done about it, but it was a thread of NQTs, interestingly, that were using a lot of bad language, tweeting to each other. And someone messaged me and said, "This is actually quite offensive." And I thought, I can't do anything about it, but I totally get where they were coming from. And I thought, actually, from that point of view, I wouldn't use bad language in a tweet, because I wouldn't use bad language in a classroom with my children, you know. And I think that's the thing. Would I say it in front of my children in school? Or would I, you know, it's those sort of tricky things. So yeah, I would never want one of my children to read a tweet if it had swear words in it.
Oh, she's swapping back.
There we go, we're back on. I'm back, unfortunately. I could end with a couple of comments for you guys. So Nazia Dar on Facebook, I try and respond at the start of the day, always on a Tuesday. I don't get out of bed till 2 hours later, but I'm always involved. That's great. Another one, I think Tiny Voices Tuesday is centered around the be kind ethos. Everyone has a voice. Everyone deserves to be heard. Canon HR, hashtag TVTTagTeam and Tiny Voices Tuesday night kickstarts my day every morning. Toria is amazing. So lots of amazing comments on there. I think it's really good. Really good. Just to end, I got one more question, and then I'll ask you all just to share a little bit about where people can find you and what you're doing next. Question I've got is, let me just try and find it. Sorry, very unprofessional here. Could you give one positive and one negative? Maybe start with negative, end with the positive. I think out the current situation that we find ourselves in at the moment.
Tori, do you want to
take the positive is absolutely, I have learned so much in the last 3 months I would never have had the opportunity to do before. I love the fact that I have learned so much. It's really exciting, actually. And, you know, the next few weeks I'll learn even more. The negative is that I'm away from my gorgeous class, who I absolutely, they're just great. I, you know, communicate with them through Google Classroom and so on. But, you know, it was, yeah, I miss miss the school community. I miss my class. I miss all of that. I miss normal. Actually, that would be my negative. My negative is I miss normal.
Lee?
Get Lee.
Yeah, and again, I'll start with the negative. Again, to echo what Toria said, missing my school community, you know, staff, parents, children, governors, visitors. It's a very alien world that we're living in at the moment, and you can't replicate as much as we've tried to through Zoom meetings and phone calls. You can't replicate that. So missing the community and that togetherness and those relationships we have is the biggest negative. The biggest positive, alongside schools, as when we reopen, we get to see each other again. But the biggest positive for me has been, on a personal level, the connections that I have made during this period with so many people who I probably sat back and watched previously and not engaged with, and some now who I will DM, who I've swapped numbers with, who are my go-tos for support. And as a first-year head teacher, that will, it's been incredible and far more powerful than any CPD course or training I think I've had to be a head teacher. Over the last few months, I think the connections I have made and being in certain round tables has been phenomenal. Absolutely.
I would say some of the negatives has been watching people that I admire struggle. There have been people who've been really challenged during this whole thing, and it's been really hard, watching people fight their own individual fights and knowing that you can't do much to help them other than just be there. So that's been kind of a tricky thing, is watching people, the amazing teachers in this country, day after day continue to do their very best for the young people in their care and not always get the support from certain quarters that they should have. That's been a negative. But the positive has been the absolute outpouring of empathy, compassion, kindness that has come from our profession, the generosity of spirit. And I really hope we keep that going and move that forward into schools and keep that empathy and that kindness at the core of everything we do, because it's so important.
100%. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lee, Toria, and Cate. Just to end, Toria, we'll start with you. Could you give us your social media handles, where people can find you, and anything you want to share with the community?
I just want to say thank you to everyone that's in anyone that's asked a question or comes along Tiny Voice Tuesday Unites. I love you all. You're amazing, because I get so much from you. I am at Toria Claire on Twitter. And if you look on my profile thing, you will see the link to my blog and all of that business, really. And you'll also see a really exciting video of me talking at Global Brew Ed, if you so wish to hear me talk even more. So yes, thank you.
Brilliantly.
So yes, I just want to say a massive thank you to both yourself and Cate for the invite, but a massive thank you to Toria, for giving me a voice as well. So, on behalf of many others out there, so thank you. But also again, you can find my blog on Toria's page, which is tagged on my Twitter profile, which is at ljhill85. But no, thank you all very much. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, Lee. You can also find Toria's blog on our website as well, I think. Rhiannon gave me a quick nudge then, so you can find that on nexuseducation.com. Finally, Cate, I want to thank you so much. Cate, believe it or not, the Nexus community sees so much of Cate. She's not employed by Nexus. She does this out of the goodness of her heart, and we want to say a massive thank you to her. She's fantastic at these webinars, and that community of bringing everyone together and what we believe in. I can't think of anyone better to be doing this at the moment than Cate. So thank you very much. Cate, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about your social media handles and your conference you got planned? Every webinar I say plug this, come on.
Well, first of all, thank you. And I think it's just a mutual support thing there. I mean, I know yesterday you spent a good hour giving me some advice, and that's what this is about. This isn't about who employs who. This is about sharing and being part of something. So I am running with Helen Delamy, Artology. We are running #Keeping It Kind 2020. We're also looking at doing a virtual conference in the summer. So that'll be, if you look at the hashtag keeping it kind, or hashtag keeping it kind 2020, or even hashtag keeping it kind 2021, we're looking at a conference about, you know, the place of kindness and empathy in education, and how really, if we use that as a foundation for everything we teach onwards, you know, we're in the right direction. Whatever happens from there on, we're in the right direction. If you want more information, my DMs are always open, and please tag me into tweets, as we were saying earlier. I am at Missy Musician 81 on Twitter. So that's Missy, MISSY, and then Musician 81.
Brilliant. Cate, Lee, Toria, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insights, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. Keep going, and thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.